Welcome back to the Fan Speak Network. Another episode of Sibling Showdown, our strategy edition. Every week, we will talk through different strategy pieces or topics that we can talk through to help us in our now big board drafts. And we're going to talk the mid-round quarterbacks in just 1 minute. That's right. Every Thursday night or every Thursday, a time to be determined, Steve and I are going to be doing a Sibling Showdown live draft once a week, likely every Friday. We will have a strategy show where we'll talk through different topics that can help us in these live drafts, these big board drafts, these pre-NFL draft, best ball drafts. And so today we are talking the strength of the quarterbacks in the mid rounds, the 8th through 12th rounds. Before I do, I got to say hi to my sibling, my brother, Steve. Steve, how are you doing? And I know you're in a ton of slow drafts right now, but you don't call it slow draft hell. You absolutely love the slow draft. So you having a time?
I do. No, I actually love the slow drafts. Probably right now in 70 plus. Already completed like 20 some drafts and still probably have 70 plus going right now just on Underdog. And that's just the football version. I'm doing plenty of baseball as well. But so it is a lot, but it means, I caught up, about half an hour before we just did a live draft. So about 2 hours ago, I caught up. When we're done with this, I'll catch up again and, have 10 to 20 drafts to do, but that's the way it is. But that way I can set aside certain times and just chunk out a bunch at a time. And, no, I mean, look, fast drafts are fun as well, but slow drafts, I like being able to think things through. And also to me, I think you're far less likely to have a slow draft that gets thrown out due to somebody like doing something untoward or a bot in there or anything like that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Whether it's time management or for me, just I make more plus EV decisions. I used to be a fast draft only girl. I'm now more in the slow draft streets. But of course, do what you like best, what you think is either most fun, most plus EV for you yourself. I've gotten way more in the slow drafts, of course, outside of our stream drafts, which is so fun. Check out, we just did a live Sibling Showdown on Thursday night. So check that out. Andrew and Justin did theirs on Wednesday night, and Tyler and Spread did theirs on Tuesday. So pretty much live draft Tuesday with Tyler and Spread, Wednesday with Andrew and Justin, Thursday with Steve and I every single week. And then there'll be strategy shows from Andrew and Justin and Steve and I every week, which will give us content basically almost every single weekday here on the FanSpeak Network. So of course, be sure you like this episode and subscribe. Be sure to hit that notification to know when things go live on the FanSpeak Network or things like this show are getting uploaded. And again, tell a friend because we're close to 500 subs. Once we get to 500 subs, we're throwing a $500 giveaway live stream party with all sorts of fun giveaways. So be sure to tell a friend, get us to 500, and then we'll be on the road to 1,000 this summer. Help us out. Appreciate that. Also, check out all our content on fanspeak.com. We've got plenty of good stuff there, plenty of good stuff coming. Best of all subscription coming in March. We're excited about it all. But basically, best ball content every single weekday here on the FanSpeak Network. Steve, now it's time to talk mid-round quarterbacks. So, of course, you've got the elite quarterbacks going in the top 5, 6 rounds with obviously, rounds 3 through 5. You've got the kind of the floor ceiling combo dual threat quarterbacks with Josh Allen, obviously Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, and Lamar Jackson. I didn't do them in the correct order, but those are like the four like massive floor ceiling rushing combos. And of course you have Burrow going usually fifth round. And so I think all those are warranted. You got a really nice floor ceiling combo with all those guys. Of course, Burrow, you can now get the stacks if you want with Chase or Higgins or both. So definitely I'm going to have the elite, let's call that the elite tier in my portfolio. The late round quarterbacks right now, we have a massive quarterback carousel that's going to happen in the next month. We're now at February 20th. This combine is next week. We'll probably start to hear stuff at the combine or right after the combine. And from now until, mid-March, there will be the carousel will be a turn-in, and we will get some landing spots on a lot of these vets. There are so many vets that, don't really have homes right now, but I'm sure will be firmed up. Like, will Derek Carr stay with the Saints? Will he go somewhere else? Will Matthew Stafford stay with the Rams and work out a deal, or will he be somewhere else? And then the dominoes will fall from there. So lots of news stuff on those bets. And those are the guys going, of course, late in the draft. I don't mind tacking on one of those guys late and not worrying about the stacks and just grabbing whether it's a Darnold or Russell Wilson or Aaron Rodgers or Derek Carr or something like that. Of course, you could attack the rookie quarterbacks there. Of course, that's an unknown as well. That takes us to, let me bring over the mid-round quarterbacks. And I'm going to bring over Underdog Fantasy rankings for these quarterbacks. And I'm starting, of course, after Burrow, you have Mahomes, you have Knicks. I'm kind of starting Mayfield. I've seen go more in that 90 range. So we're talking pick 90 to 142. That's 8th through 12th round, middle of the draft. Steve and I kind of like getting 2 of these quarterbacks. Now, of course, you could do an elite quarterback and then get another one here. And then I'd probably tack another one on late in these 20-round drafts. But if you wait, Pat, to start here in the 90s, I like getting 2 of these guys because this range is loaded with about 14 or 15 quarterbacks that I absolutely love. Steve, thoughts on that whole, the big picture macro idea of this mid-round quarterbacks and attacking it and trying to get 2 before we go one by one?
Yeah, and we'll as we get through these guys, we'll talk about the reasons why we love the value. But just in general, it's you're getting, if you're waiting until like the 8th, 9th round for the first one, and then another in the 10th, 11th, 12th range for what we're talking about, you're compared to the 3rd, 4th, or even 5th round, you're getting, multi-round difference. And sure, they're not as safe, and maybe they don't have the QB1 upside as much, but they're pretty good. And we'll get through that as we go through them. And unlike the guys later, we know where they're at. These guys are all essentially playing where they're going to be playing. We know who to stack with them. We know what the offensive coordinator situation that they're playing with and just how they fit the scheme and all that kind of stuff. We just have a much better idea with these guys. Maybe an uncertainty here or there about their top weapon or whatnot. But
sure,
overall, we just have a lot of certainty, and we're not having to pay for it. It's just a way, as we talk about here, double up in this range. You're getting 2 really good starters who can just consistently give you good to great fantasy production. And yeah, maybe they're not going to challenge, Lamar or Allen for QB1, but they can definitely be top 5. They can definitely,
sure,
almost guaranteed to be in the top 10 mix. So yeah, it's a way to really firm yourself up with top end running backs and receivers, and maybe an elite tight end, given some of the uncertainty at those spots later in the draft, and get 2 guys you feel really confident about.
Yeah. And like Steve and I usually draft 3 in the 18-round drafts, 2, 3 quarterbacks, that is. But especially in these 20-round drafts, getting 2 here and then 1 later, I feel those are my favorite builds. And so let's get right to it. As you can see, you'll see percentages. That is Best Ball Overlay. Check out bestballoverlay.com. Helps you manage your portfolio, keeps track of how much you've drafted these guys, how much dollars you've spent on these particular players. And then, of course, in a draft, you can see live, like the stacks. Once the schedule is released, you'll be able to see, obviously, correlation. It also is able to see combination stuff right in a draft. So say I draft Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans, I can see that combination and who I've drafted with them most commonly. And then I can mix it up to diversify your portfolio. So check out Best Ball Overlay, $10 off with code FANSPEAK. Steve, let's start at the top. Speaking of guys you can get as top 5 quarterbacks, Baker Mayfield starting, he usually goes 89, 90. That's 8th round. He was quarterback 4 last year?
He was quarterback 5 in points per game,
Okay.
and I think total points. I'm sorry, I have it sorted through week 17. I don't like to add week 18 just because a guy like Josh Allen started, but I don't think he had a single point. So
right.
But through week 17, that's the numbers I'll give. He was QB 5, so I think he did edge and was QB 4 if you look through all 18 weeks, because he had to do more in week 18 than some other guys.
Sure. Okay. So talk more about, I mean, again, you said
Yeah.
QB5
So,
last year. Go ahead.
so Baker, yes, he's losing his offense coordinator, but they're promoting from within. We know Mike Evans is back. We know Kate Otten's back. Jalen McMillan looked really good as a rookie, particularly down the stretch. And there's still chances that Chris Godwin could be back. So their receivers could be better than they were a year ago when they had a rookie Jalen McMillan. Mike Evans missed about 4 weeks. Chris Godwin missed half the year. So we could actually be looking at a situation where Baker has more to work with. Of course, Bucky and Rashard White should be the 1-2 combo at running back. Both can be effective out of the backfield. Offensive line should be pretty strong. And I think, look, they know what they got in Baker. He led them to the playoffs these past 2 years. I think they just keep firing away. And that's why they probably didn't want Chris Godwin back. Because it was going so well last year. And then they actually had a bit of a downturn, when that streak where Evans and Godwin missed. I mean, there was like a 3-game streak where both those guys were out. That's insane that Baker had these numbers.
Yeah, absolutely. As you can see, I already have 3 shares, 16%. I have some slow drafts I need to finish up to balance out my percentages and I'll be close to 25 drafts completed here in the early pre-draft season. Next up is Jared Goff going ADP 93. And speaking of, he was quarterback 7 points per game last year. Yes, I know he lost Ben Johnson, but I still think, the weapons are there. And so I think for where you're getting him, it's only slightly higher than last year. I'm in.
Yeah. Seventh, last year, the year before he finished, I just had it. I think he was 7th. He was 16 points per game, but he was 7th in total points through 17 weeks. So it's just a consistency there.
Yeah.
And also, as we saw last year, what helped was the addition of Jameson Williams, that explosive element to balance the Amon-Ra and Laporta, kind of underneath. And of course, Jahmyr Gibbs is just an amazing stud out of the backfield also. So, yes, no Ben Johnson, but still a really strong team across the board. Great offensive line, great weapons. Jared Goff is, I think, good in this area. I mean, he is, not the type of guy who's going to finish QB1 or maybe in the top 5, but very likely to be in the top 10 mix.
Yeah, it gives a solid floor too, I think. Yeah. And then certainly we saw the ceiling potential. What do you think, really quick, before we move on, about the new offensive coordinator for Detroit?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to why mess with a good thing. I hope that's their mentality. They've just been so close these last 2 years. Mm-hmm. Just keep going, and you've sky's the limit ahead of you is the way I look at it.
Yeah. I hope that they kind of stick with it too. Okay, that takes us to Kyler Murray. I don't have any shares of him yet. Not to say I won't. It's just in this mid-range, I do like the guys above him and below him a little bit more. But talk about how you're handling Kyler Murray, ADP 96.
Yeah, and you look at it, and right now he's going as QB 10. These last 2 years, he finished through 17 weeks as QB 10 and QB 11. So this is right what he's done in previous years. I'm talking points per game because obviously he missed a lot of time last year, but in previous years he was QB like 5 a couple years ago. So we know there's even some more upside there, especially if the running share goes a little higher. But he's got probably the best weapons he's had. Again, hoping Marvin Harrison Jr. continues to ascend, but McBride really broke out. Connor solid out of the backfield. Michael Wilson's an okay number 2. They could look to add another receiver. Definitely wouldn't be surprised there. So yeah, I think Kyler is really safe in this range. He's going to be a spike week guy who, if he has a good game with his legs, could really give you a few spike weeks. But he's also consistently shown to be around a top 10 quarterback. So yeah, I think you're getting a solid guy at value.
Yeah. And the next one, I have already drafted 3 shares. One, I think I have some in some slow drafts. One, a lot more of Caleb Williams. Obviously wasn't the season everybody thought is the number 1 pick, but now with Ben Johnson at the helm, you have to believe that it's going to improve from here. And he showed flashes. So how are you handling Caleb Williams at ADP 98?
Yeah, last year he finished as QB 15 in total points and through 17 weeks. And like you said, Ben Johnson is such a big addition. He's got at least two really good receivers in DJ Moore and Rome Dunze. They need to invest in the offensive line. I'm assuming that's what they're going to do this offseason to really help Caleb Williams. Maybe they bring back Keenan Allen, maybe not, or maybe they add another receiver. But either way, he should be fine at weapons. I assume the offensive line is going to improve. And we know there's just a massive, massive upgrade in the play calling department with Ben Johnson at the helm for Shane Waldron and Thomas Brown or whoever else was calling plays at the end there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I definitely want to get more invested in Caleb Williams for sure. Brock Purdy is the next one right behind him, ADP 99. He's tough to get. I've only gotten a couple shares so far. He's tougher to get because all of his weapons go ahead of him. So, when the stacks go ahead, it makes it harder to get your quarterback because you've got 4 or 5 different potentially if they went to separate teams in your pod that you're competing with, as opposed to the guys where more of the stacks are more or all are after, makes it much easier to get. So tough to get, but I still want plenty of shares of Brock Purdy. Obviously the 49ers, everything went wrong. I mean, starting with the shooting of Pearsall before the season to the massive injuries throughout the team, not just Christian McCaffrey and Ayuk. I mean, just massive injuries and, losing time on the offensive line and their weapons. And it couldn't have gone more wrong from an injury variance perspective for the 49ers. I think we have a massive bounce back here and I want in. How are you handling Brock Purdy?
Yeah. And that's the thing, 2 years ago with Brock Purdy, he was coming off that terrible elbow injury he suffered in the championship game and, was a top 10 quarterback. Last year, everything went wrong around him and he still finished as a top 10 quarterback in terms of through week 17 points per game. He finished with 18.6 points, which had him 9th, just above Bo Nix. So, I think you just look at it from that perspective and Purdy, yes, maybe Debo's traded.
Right.
Maybe Ayuk's not back to start the year, but they should absolutely be better than they were a year ago in terms of weapon health, offensive line health. I'm going to assume they're going to invest in adding some depth there. And yeah, McCaffrey being back actually helps him because he was not able to dump off to the running backs as much as he did the year prior. So yeah, I just think Purdy, I think you're getting a little value here. And sure, like you said, it's tough to stack because you need to take the guys ahead of them.
Yeah.
But that's why I'm taking these guys. That's why I'm in on, Jennings and Pearsall in particular, a little Kittle, little McCaffrey as well. But you get any of those guys, and if you feel like Debo or Ayuk makes sense, same thing. Then be targeting Purdy and even be a little aggressive because, he was 8th and 9th these last 2 years. No reason that shouldn't continue this year.
I mean, I was going to say he was quarterback 9 last year with basically everything that could possibly go wrong.
Yeah.
Our pets' heads are falling off. It literally was the worst situation for the 49ers. I mean, an absolute brutal run out for them. And he still finished quarterback 9. I mean, look what he did in week 17 last year, again, the marquee game, Detroit, San Francisco, he goes for 32.5 points. I need more Purdy. I definitely want to be very active about that. Next one is the one I'm struggling with. Jordan Love obviously had a massively strong finish the season prior. Last season, multiple injuries during the season. Then he loses Christian Watson at the end of the season. So he's going to Wicks really didn't, show it to us. What are they going to do there? We don't know. It's kind of kept me I've only gotten 1 share so far. Again, have some drafts to finish up, but I don't think he's in any of those currently. I've kind of been just stunted here where I just haven't done much with Love. And I do want to get more exposure to Love, but how are you handling Jordan Love?
So I'm a little bit more bullish on Love. I think you look at it and it was another situation where a lot went wrong. Tucker Kraft stepped up. Musgrave went down early with injury. Christian Watson was in and out of the lineup. Other receivers were in and out of the lineup. Romeo Doubs had to be suspended 1 week because he refused to show up. And they had some O-line issues. And Love did miss 2 weeks, and I think he came back, and I don't think he was 100%. Then later in the year, I think it was the Detroit game, first Detroit game, he got banged up. So I think he was playing through multiple injuries. Still, through week 17, points per game, he finished 13th. The year before, he was 6th overall in points per game. So I just think there's a lot of upside there.
I mean, we love Josh Jacobs. They were run heavy. Are you worried that they'll just stick to that? I mean, it pretty much worked. I mean, I know they need to get over the hump, but.
And I think they'll continue for that. But I also see the other thing is I think the Packers are going to be worse defensively. Jair Alexander's probably gone, probably losing a couple guys on defense. So I wouldn't be surprised if they just need to be in some more shootouts. And we saw that when he did excel, it was sometimes where they had some shootouts,
Yeah.
So
no, we saw with the Bengals, like sometimes attacking the stacks in those with attached to a defense that's struggling is awesome, actually, for fantasy.
Yeah.
So if you're telling me that their defense takes a step back, I'm into that.
And so I just think there's enough upside here. We have seen it before with him. This is not just projection. We've actually seen it with him. And I mean, Jacob said it. We need to go get a receiver, whether they draft something, they, may even trade up in the draft to get somebody. There's some Devontae Adams coming home rumors. Any which way, they're adding weapons. I like it for Love.
Yeah, I do need to get more love. Now the next two you can see, I have them in slows too, so the numbers are even higher of 27% and 38% respectively of Justin Herbert, Drake May. These are two of my favorite targets in these middle rounds. Justin Herbert ADP of 112. Really, it's like if the Ladd McConkey drafter lets Justin Herbert, well, first of all, if I get Ladd McConkey, I try to get Justin Herbert. If the Ladd McConkey drafter lets Herbert fall, I take him. That's where you're seeing these numbers. We saw it last year that he started to use his legs a little more when he was healthier. And I just think, towards the end of the year, they let him open it up more, especially as he and Ladd McConkey got more, on the same page and obviously just really had a great second half to the season. So I think that's going to continue to roll. I think they're going to get more weapons and I want a lot of Justin Herbert this year. How are you handling it?
Yeah, I'm the same way. His overall numbers last year didn't look as great. He was QB 16 in points per game, but those first 7 games, 8 weeks,
they were bad.
It wasn't good. He was banged up. They had some offensive line injuries. McConkey was banged up. Palmer was banged up kind of throughout the year, and even QJ. So, it wasn't good. And also he was breaking in a rookie wide receiver in McConkey. Yeah. But when he did, we saw what happened. Right. And sure, McConkey missed one game later in the year, but even that playoff game against the Texans, I know Herbert threw a ton of interceptions that game, but we just saw the McConkey Herbert potential. I think there is a high likelihood that this is a team who's going to add not just one, but probably multiple weapons this offseason. I think the offensive line, it's young, it's got a lot of upside, continues to get better. I just think there's a lot to like here with Herbert, and I would absolutely think he's top 10 quarterback mix next year. And we've actually seen him, it was about 3 years ago now, but he was like quarterback 3 or 4. So there's even some extreme upside cases. And the year before, he ended up getting injured, missing last 4 weeks. But at the time he got injured, I believe he was quarterback 7. So, we just know that is in his bag.
Right. I was just going to say that it's in his bag. Okay. Going to the next one, Drake May, ADP 118, as you can see, my highest exposure quarterback. We just took Herbert and May. Speaking of getting 2 quarterbacks, we got them in rounds 9 and 10, Steve, I believe, but we just got Herbert and May in our live draft that we did on Thursday night. Listen, you got Josh McDaniels now as the offensive coordinator. They have lots of money to spend, lots of draft picks, a high draft pick. They're going to build the offensive line, the weapons. Yes, they whiffed on the receiver situation last year, but I think they get the weapons for May. And I think they're going to lean into that floor ceiling combo, that rushing upside, and let him run more and let him run around the goal line more, which obviously I just think we got a fantasy gold mine here that we're getting in the 9th, 10th round.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, excuse me, you look at what he did last year after he got inserted into the starting lineup, and he had that one game where he got injured with concussion pretty early. But, he had 3 games of 20 plus points in 9 games,
Right.
and then 2 others at or I'm sorry, 3 others at 18 to 19 points. So
Yep.
that's like 6 of 9 games where he was very fantasy viable, and that's with a bad offense coordinator,
Garbage.
the worst offensive line, and outside of Hunter Henry, the worst weapons possible. His receiving group was, I think, the worst in the league.
Awful.
I don't think there's any question on that. And this is a team that has a top 5 pick and other obviously high draft picks that they can use to upgrade this, and they have the most money in free agency. It's going to be O-line, receivers. I just think, sure, they need to spend some of that on defense because their defense is bad as well. But May had 400 yards rushing again in just about nine games, and they didn't. And according to reports, they didn't call a single running play for him.
Right.
Like he was gained 400 yards rushing in essentially half a year.
Just scrambling.
That just shows he could have had 700-800 yards. I mean, we're talking like Jaden Daniels territory, Lamar Jackson territory. I don't know if it'll be that high, but
right.
Yeah, do not be shocked if he's gained 600-700 yards rushing next year. 5 to maybe 10 rushing touchdowns.
I was going to say more opportunities rushing around. Yeah. I just think Josh McDaniels is going to call more stuff for him around the goal line.
Yeah.
See how these other quarterbacks are used around there. I mean, hell, someone like May, couldn't you, he's huge. Like he's like Josh Allen, you could push him, so who knows? I mean, I just think with a smart offensive coordinator and added weapons, I just think this is a situation where we can take advantage of it. Listen, I love Jaden Daniels and hope he builds on his amazing rookie season, but May really shows he's got it in the rookie season. Now, if he's got the weapons and the coaching, I think we could just take advantage of an opportunity. And as you can see, I already have percentage wise, and I'm going to kind of keep doing it because the risk is, you're getting him in the 9th, 10th round. So,
yeah. Well, and that's the thing, like, Daniels is going like
4th,
4th round. Bo Nix is going like 6th, 7th round.
Yeah.
And you're getting this guy, 10th, 9th, 10th round. Sometimes he maybe even sneaks to the 11th. I've seen him fall sometimes because, and here's the thing right now is there's no good stacking partners in front of him. And outside of Hunter Henry, there's no good stacking partners behind him. So nobody's helping to like drag him up. So
exactly, which is why I want to draft so much now, because after the draft, like when we get to the regular best ball draft season, we will know the free agents, the draft picks, his other weapons, because I have so much Antonio Gibson and Hunter Henry stacked with him right now, because that's what we know. But that is why people are letting him fall. Don't make that mistake. Take him. Who cares? Like you came in 4th place with Baker unstacked. He fell. You took him. You weren't able to get Kate Otten. Big deal. He was your hero to finish in 4th place. Same situation here. Don't take May because he doesn't have good stacking partners in this part of the big board. Like he's going to go up then. Okay. So say a good free agent lands there. Then May goes up, right? Let's take advantage of his price now. So I'd say take him now. Take him when his price goes up, and then if he even gets draft picks tied to him and goes up further, I'm probably still going to be taking him because I do see a top 5, top 10 potential here. Yeah. Okay. We spent a lot of time there because we obviously really like Herbert and May, and I really like Dak too. Listen, this was quarterback 5 last year, the year prior. Last year he gets injured, and it didn't look good to start. But you have to think they're going to address the running game. I understand that Dallas is top heavy. I understand people will think the wheels are going to fall off, and pets' heads are falling off in Dallas too. But it could be one of those things where 2 years ago people were grossed out about Mike McCarthy calling plays. People aren't impressed with Schottenheimer, or aren't excited about Schottenheimer. We'll see. I'm going to take advantage of the unknown and the fact that, people are kind of grossed out by the Dallas situation and say, I'm getting Dak in the 10th, 11th round. That's great. He's ADP 123. If I have Lamb, I'm obviously trying to draft Dak. If I don't get Lamb and the Lamb drafter lets him fall, I'm taking him. I'm back stacking with, Ferguson and or Tolbert. And that's how I'm handling it. I just think he's an excellent mid-round target, and absolutely, if he stays healthy, which he didn't last year, will outperform this ADP. Those are my thoughts. Go ahead.
Yeah. And so, 2 years ago, Schottenheimer was the OC. The past 2 years, he's been the OC, but obviously McCarthy had a big say in the offense. What I like, though, not only did Schottenheimer see this work 2 years ago, but also in his press conference, he said all the right things. Like, we need to do more motion. We need to, all these different types of things. So I think he gets it. And Dak, we know, whether it's with Kellen Moore or 2 years ago with the McCarthy-Schottenheimer mix, Dak can very much be a top 10 quarterback, even a top 5 quarterback. Like you said, CeeDee Lamb is one of the best receivers in the league. And if you need to backstack him, they're likely to take a receiver in the first or second round. So his weapons can be better. Their offensive line, I just saw Zach Martin's retiring, but he's so banged up last year. They've drafted a lot of offensive linemen of late. I think they're going to continue to build through the offensive line. And yeah, I think Dak, where we're getting him, is this just a situation where the odds are he is going to outplay this ADP if he's healthy. And even from points per game, if he is one of those guys who misses 2 or 3 games, he just should have multiple spike weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe I'm biased. Dak, was it 3 years ago, took me to the BBM3 finals. So maybe I'm a little biased there. Certainly not biased as a Washington fan, but definitely biased. I'm a Dak fantasy fan, and think it could be a bounce back year here. Yeah. So, okay. CJ Stroud is the next one, ADP 126. I think the only share I have is actually with you in a live sibling showdown big board. I know I need to be open. I was very unimpressed last year. I know I need to be open to taking more, especially when I have Nico. But even not. So good to give me your thoughts on, sell me more on CJ Stroud, because I'm still not quite there.
Yeah. So the top thing with Stroud is obviously is a step back here, but it was another situation kind of similar to the 49ers. Everything went wrong. Nico missed a good stretch of time. Tank Dell sadly breaks his leg. Stephon Diggs blows out his knee. Mixon even missed a couple games, but the offensive line was atrocious. Some due to injury, some just poor play. Hopefully they're healthier. And I do think there'll be a focus. They do need to add weapons, but Nico Collins is one of the elite receivers in the league. Very similar to our conversation we just had with Dak. CeeDee Lamb is elite. So is Nico Collins. These are two that, just top end wide receivers, no question. And then the other thing is offensive coordinator potential upgrade here. Just didn't seem to work out with Slowick. He didn't make adjustments when they started losing players, when they started losing offensive linemen. Stroud was just constantly harried, constantly under pressure. So I think a lot of it was just not his fault. They need to do more things like play action, need to do more motion, keep extra guy in the block. I mean, if you're getting killed, you're getting killed. So sometimes you got to adjust, and it just didn't go well last year. 2 years ago, he finished as QB 10. I think he can get back in that mix, particularly if they get some good health along the offensive line. So,
what do you think about their new offensive coordinator?
I don't know a ton about him, but I think they clearly saw a regression in everything that's happening around Stroud, and so my take on it is they are going to do everything to have Stroud succeed. And that was including firing Slowick, who had a great first year, but took a big step back in year 2 when things started to really go wrong.
Yeah, no, I do need to get more Stroud. And some of these, like I know I have some Lawrence, but it's in a slow draft. So some of these I do have some exposure, just not showing up yet. But we'll be wrapping those up to show my exposure soon. But next up is Trevor Lawrence, ADP 129, obviously new coach with Duval press conference. It wasn't the best start, but I do think this could be Trevor Lawrence's best head coach. So how are you handling Trevor Lawrence?
Yeah, and just that for a second. I mean, as a rookie, he's Urban Meyer, who was the worst head coach in recent times. And then they bring in Doug Peterson. I know Doug Peterson led the Eagles to the Super Bowl, but he was just kind of outdated in his schemes and fits. And just the way he handled and used players. You got to love Liam Cohen. You got to love what he did, first with the Rams, and then last year against Tampa. So big upgrade there. And Trevor Lawrence, for all we say, and I just have it up right now, he played fully in 9 games, and he still had 3 20+ point games and another 18-point game. So out of 9 games, that's a pretty good rate, and I think that it should even be more improved this year. Brian Thomas taking a step. Last year they were another team that had a lot of injuries issues. Ingram missed a ton of time. Kirk and Gabe Davis were essentially out for the year pretty early on. So, I just think it's likely to get better. The situation seems to be that they're really going to invest around him. And I think maybe we actually finally see Trevor Lawrence get unlocked. And, it's unfortunate, but it could be a similar situation. Look at Baker. It just took the right spot.
Yeah.
He had to leave the Browns to do so. But
maybe it's getting a new his third coach to unlock
exactly.
like what Baker. Yeah, I get the comparison to Baker, and ironically, Liam Cohen was with Baker last year.
Yep.
It was Baker's second great year in a row. But if Liam Cohen can do anything to continue Baker's growth for Trevor Lawrence, that would be amazing. Of course, talk about tied to an amazing receiver, Brian Thomas Jr. Absolutely elite, obviously going in the first round. And like you said, whether it's running back, receiver, wouldn't be surprised if they bring some more weapons to the table.
Oh, absolutely.
Here. So, so next up is Michael Penix. He's one that I actively want to take more. This might be a product of kind of what I'm saying about the other ones where, sometimes people don't take them because they don't get the early stack. I haven't taken much Drake London, so I haven't gotten much Michael Penix. I need to fix that. I need some Drake London. I need some Michael Penix. I need some Michael Penix, even if I don't have Drake London, and getting him, with other stack partners, whether it's Bijan or Mooney or, whatever. So I need to take more Michael Penix. I'll own that. ADP 132. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Michael Penix was actually one of my favorite quarterbacks in the draft last year. Had a checkered injury history early in his college career. He actually has more mobility than people give him credit for. I'm not sure how much he'll use it, but he's got a cannon for an arm, just an absolute cannon for an arm. Pretty accurate also. We saw it when he got to Washington, College of Washington. And, he only started 3 games last year. Final game, week 18, he had a pretty good game. But, I really think there's a lot of upside here. Falcons come in, as you mentioned, 2 good receivers, London and Mooney, a great running back, Bijan, probably going to upgrade at tight end. I don't know if Kyle Pitts will be back, but they have one of the best offensive lines in the game. I think that's such a big help for him. So I'm excited for Penix, and he's somebody that I think could really break out this year.
Well, we saw a massive shootout between him and a guy we'll talk about in a few picks, and Bryce Young was actually week 18 that the two of them both went off in a massive shootout. So, he definitely showed it last year. He showed signs. Yeah.
That game Penix had 26 points that game.
Okay. I was going to ask how many. I knew Bryce Young went absolutely nuclear, but I thought, it was such a high scoring game. I thought Penix had.
Yeah.
Okay. So I need to take more Michael Penix, and I need to take more the next one, Tua Tagovailoa. He's a guy that I've taken a lot in the past couple of years. And obviously the injury risk with the concussions does make you wary. I mean, obviously last year I love Mike McDaniel offense, but last year it just wasn't coming together. One of our favorite late round tight ends was really, and then of course A-Chain were the two things that really did hit, and give you some value. A-Chain was explosive when he played with Tua. And then Jonnu Smith was a great late round hero. Now still going in that mid-range, early to mid-range that I do still like Jonnu Smith. But I do need to be willing to take more Tua here. I admit I've been a little scared off. And I think I just like the guys, not Anthony Richardson. We'll get to that in a minute. I like the guys above him, and Bryce Young probably slightly more. But I need to be willing to take more Tua. How are you handling him at ADP 137?
Yeah, honestly, it's tough because the injury, it clouds our judgment. Then they shut him down at the end of the year, which was a smart call. They weren't going to the playoffs, so shut him down the last couple of weeks. But, he had 10 essentially full games. And in that, he had 4 games over 20 points and another 18.5 and 17.5 point game.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of usable weeks there. And he had this stretch of those 4 games of 20 points. Not just were they 20 points, but they were 23.5 to 28.5. So really, really good numbers there. And that is in a situation where, the offensive line was bad. Tyreek Hill was dealing with an injury himself. Though if you do look at Hill and Tua games, their production overall was better than people assume. And Jalen Waddle definitely kind of was banged up and regressed as well. I do think they are going to absolutely focus on the offensive line. And
Yeah.
I think, maybe there, some talk of a Tyreek Hill trade. Either way, then they'll need to focus on weapons more, but they'll probably bring in some weapons as well. But the tough thing is, yes, if Tua misses time, look, another concussion, he could be done for his career. But
That's what's scary. Yeah.
Him missing time is tough. Absolutely be doing 3 quarterback builds anytime you're taking Tua, but the upside is there. One of the most best play callers. When this offense is clicking, it is as good as any offense in the league. And Tua has shown, the year before and last year that he can, when healthy, he can produce in this.
Yeah, no, I definitely need to take some more too. I definitely, as you said, 3 quarterback builds, and that goes for the 18-round drafts as well. Okay, next one, I'll go quick. To use a Shark Tank line, Anthony Richardson, ADP 140. Yes, it's way lower than it was last year. It should be. He has a completion percentage sub 50%.
Yeah.
I don't think he'll finish the year, whether it's due to injury or just performance. I mean, just based on performance, I don't see him finishing the year. I think it'll be very interesting to see who the quarterback 2 is. That'll give a hint, whether it's coming in the free agency or draft, as to probably how long of a leash there is. But I don't think he finishes the year. To use Shark Tank, one of my favorite shows, and for that reason, I'm out. I will have 0 Anthony Richardson most likely. How are you handling him?
Yeah, 0 to very, very little. And I do kind of want to see what they do for a backup quarterback, because I do think that can determine how much. If they go cheap at it, then maybe there's a bit of a longer leash, because the one thing Richardson does provide is obviously spike weeks.
Sure.
He missed plenty of time, had 4 games over 20 points. Now, some were low, but he did have a 27 and a 28-point game. But yeah, as you said, I mean, he's massively regressed last year, took more sacks, turned the ball over more, threw less touchdowns, and his completion percentage being sub 50%. I mean, sub 60% is awful. Sub 50% hasn't happened in 30 years. Like that's what guys in the 70s, like below average quarterbacks in the 70s and 80s would be, 50% range.
Yeah.
The NFL offense is just too easy to be higher than that. So, and he has weapons. He is.
I know.
Josh Downs,
Pittman,
Alec Pierce, Michael Pittman, even Adonai Mitchell, Jonathan Taylor out of the backfield. So yeah. And decent offensive line. So maybe if it all clicks, you're getting some massive value in at least some spike weeks. But you have a real chance where, one, he's not playing in the playoffs, week 15, 16, 17 for us. And 2, it might be half a year or less. And that's scary, because the reason being is, look, the Colts have finished just, kind of just outside the playoffs these 2 years. And that's what kind of breaking in Anthony Richardson. Steichen doesn't have a long leash. And so he knows his team can contend, but they just need a functional quarterback.
Well, that's why if I were a Colts fan, or if I were Shane Steichen, or I would want to invest in a quarterback, and I understand, the draft capital they spent on him, but just to try to save my job. Like, I'd rather, if I were like in Shane Steichen's position, I'd want them to go out and get like a Carr or a vet or something like that to give a good Harvard try at this, because you do have the weapons to make a run, and obviously in a weak division. So it'll be so interesting to see what they do as the QB2, which we'll likely find out as free agency opens up. I have to say, I guess I shouldn't say I'll take 0. The couple times I took him last year, I took him much less than the field. I want to say I took him, 5 or 6% last year. And of that, a few, even in 18-round drafts, I would, I did this in Superflex too, but I would take him. And in the 18th round, I took Joe Flacco. And when Joe Flacco came in, I was like, oh my God, this is going to work. It didn't end up working with Joe Flacco, but I'm telling you, if Jameis Winston goes there or something, I don't know. I might just draft Jameis Winston late, or or Mariota or Winston or something. Ironically, they were in the same draft class, but I don't know if a vet that goes there that Richardson would likely start, but you have to think the vet finishes the year. I don't know. I might do a Richardson and them as almost like a handcuff, or just say screw it and take shots and say, I don't think Richardson's going to start that much, so I'll just take, whatever that bet is in the late rounds. If it's somebody like that, obviously, if it's someone like Carr or something, then I would just take Carr. But again, we'll find out. But that would be something I did. I did do it with Flacco last year. I thought it might get me to the playoffs and work out, but then Flacco kind of fell off. But yeah, it's going to be so interesting.
Yeah, no, and to your point, like, yeah, Flacco didn't have much fantasy production, but look, Drew Lock replaced the quarterback who I compare the situation the most to is Daniel Jones, the guy who last year in drafts was going like 16, 17, 18. And that's kind of where I see Anthony Richardson should be more. And that's why where he's at, if he was going 3 rounds later, then I'd be more interested in taking a couple shots, just getting a few big spike weeks.
Sure.
And that's what Daniel Jones did. Daniel Jones had like 2 or 3 20-plus point games last year and then got benched midway through the year. But to your point, Drew Lock was one of the fantasy heroes week 17.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But no, I just think it's very risky. And honestly, in 20 rounds right now, I'd probably do it in a situation where I'm taking 4 quarterbacks.
Yeah. Yeah. No, once we find out, I might do some like creative stuff like that, just because not many people will do it. And I do like the weapons. In the last 2 live drafts I did, both on Andrew and Justin's show, I jumped in the draft, and then we just did a draft with both Downs and Downs and Pierce. And I did that twice. And it was just the way the draft fell. But I did it twice, and I was like, well, it's a shame I don't know who the quarterback, this QB2 is, because I would have just taken him, because I don't think Richardson's going to last. So, anyways.
And I think the biggest part is he's still going in an area, and we'll get to like our next guy in a second, but he's going in an area where he's not far behind the Lawrences and Strouds and all that, and into a Penix, obviously, but and then Young, or whether you're betting on other true young guys like McCarthy probably taking over, Cam Ward should walk into a starting role, Shedeur Sanders a little later, Sam Darnold probably a guaranteed starting role, and it's like Richardson better than any of those guys? It's really tough to say.
No, besides the whole, he could offer you a couple spike weeks if he does get like a half season. Maybe you do get what you got last year and you get 2 or 3 spike weeks. Other than that, you're not getting him at the most important. Likely, you're not going to get them at the most important time, the end of the season, based on what we're hypothesizing, benching. So if you're not getting him then, but it's such a shame, because he is tied to a talented offense. Jonathan Taylor, 3 good receivers, who knows? Well, maybe there's getting mocks or have Tyler Warren going there. So like, it is a shame, because the talent of the offensive skill positions are there. It's just, I just don't see him playing the end of the season.
And that's just the point that I want to give is, again, similar to Daniel Jones last year. The reason why Daniel Jones went late, we know he has upside. He was, on Pat Green's winning team just a couple years ago on BBM and had a top 10 fantasy year that year.
Right.
But we also knew he had a high bench rate potential, and that's why he was going late. And Richardson should be treated the same way. And honestly, kind of the way, and not that there was, Tyson Badgett was really pushing him, but kind of how Fields was the year before, where just a young quarterback who it just isn't looking like it's working out. Yeah, and there's some spike week potential, and also injury. I mean, Richardson's getting injured multiple times both years, so it's just not great. And I'll take him a couple times here, but really, I'd love to see him like 3 rounds later, because I think that's like honestly, I don't even really think Justin Fields is the starting quarterback, but I would take Justin Fields over Richardson right now.
Yeah, no, I get that. I totally get that. We'll just talk about one more quarterback in this mid-range, which is really the 8th through 12th round. Then maybe we can mention some like other ones that we may be targeting later. But to round it out, Bryce Young, ADP 142, getting him in the 12th round. I know our friend of the program, Tyler, took him in the last draft. Thought it was a great pick. I've gotten a couple shares. I think I have a couple slow drafts, but want to get more of them. There's plenty of stack options, but we just saw once he came back in after he was benched and came back, that end of the season performances from Bryce Young looked really good. And you got to believe maybe sorry, I'm blanking on the coach's name, is truly a quarterback whisperer.
Dave Canales, yeah.
Dave Canales is a quarterback whisperer. He did it with Geno. He did it with Baker. He did it with Bryce Young. And he's still the head coach, for Bryce Young to mold him and take the next step. So I want to get a lot more Bryce Young. How are you handling him at ADP 142?
Yeah, no, the thing with Young, like you said, obviously it started so terrible last year, gets benched. Then he has to come back in because Andy Dalton gets banged up. But he really takes off after the bye. Week 12 on, his points per game were 16.5, 23.6, 13.5, 14, 27.1, 16.9. Then that week 18 shootout against Michael Penix, 36.4. That was the top quarterback score of the week. Granted, some quarterbacks didn't play that week, but that's an elite score. And this is a team, they trade away Deontay Johnson. Everyone got rid of Deontay Johnson last year, but they traded away Deontay Johnson. Thielen missed a ton of time. He was back for most of these last games, and that's kind of, I think, why you see some of these spikes from Bryce Young. We hope the young guys like Xavier Legette and Jalen Coker continue to develop. Tavian Sanders at tight end. And, I think they're going to keep investing in the offensive line. They made some investments last year. I think they continue to do that. He's got a good running back in Chuba Hubbard. I think Adam Thielen's back. I wouldn't be surprised if they add another receiver, but so his weapon should be better, offensive line better, just more experience. And we did see it at the end of last year. And from week 12 to week 18, 3 games, 20 plus points. Yeah, sign me up. For where we're getting him, 12th round here. I'm actually a pretty big fan at this ADP. I think it's one of the better values out there.
Yeah, and it should be, and it is, because there's been a lot of drafts where I've wanted to get him, whether I did have one of the Panthers receivers or I knew I could backstack him with like a Thielen or Jatavian Sanders or something like that, and he got sniped, and he should, because I do think this ADP is a little too low, kind of the reverse of what we just talked about in Richardson. Richardson's going too high in our opinion. I think Bryce Young's going too low, so I do want to get more shares, actively get more shares now before his price does, I think, will likely go up.
Yeah. And especially if they draft like a Ted McMillan or something like that, or they could draft a Tyler Warren at 8. Absolutely, they should be looking to add weapons for Young, and I think they will. And also the offensive line, it improved last year, and I think it will continue to improve. So I just think he's one of the better Young values and that there are.
Okay, well, that covered basically our favorite quarterbacks, 90 to 142, 8th round to 12th round. Let's just do a couple like late flyers that we're taking often, also, or that could go up once, because we talked about the quarterback carousel is a moving. Once they land, some of these guys are going to go up a good bit. Some may stay in this range. I've held off on Justin Fields just because I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to the Jets or or maybe it is the Colts or something like that. But I do need to get some field shares. I've been taking Darnold, and I don't know, I have him in some slow drafts too. When even because we don't know what the stack is, but he's going to be a starting quarterback. Mm-hmm. So I think once we know the landing spot on Darnold, I think his price will go up. He sometimes falls because people don't know who to stack him with. So I've been just taking him as a third quarterback. I would like to keep doing that because I do think in the coming weeks, when we know a landing spot, his price will go up. So I do want some Fields. I want more Darnold. Do want some more Geno. I'm not really in on the rookies too much. Matt Stafford, I haven't taken much yet, but because we've seen that obviously without any rushing, he really has to have those 3-4 touchdown games. Mm-hmm. Derek Carr, I am going to take more. I do think when the landing spot becomes clear, is it the Saints or is it somewhere else? Maybe goes up slightly. So I do want to get some more. And then I've been taking some Wilson and Rodgers. I think both are going to be starters next year. So I'll just say that I take them a good bit as my quarterback 3. Don't think their price is going to adjust massively. I don't know. What do you think? They'll go up to maybe like the early 200s or something, Steve?
Yeah, I actually don't think they're going to go up too high because and this is, just similar versions of Richardson, is depending on where they land, they're probably stopgaps. And as we saw with Kirk Cousins last year, whether it's a rookie or another young guy, they could they're not as locked in for a full season. So but I don't mind taking a couple shots on them as a third quarterback.
I mean, it's ironic. Both are Hall of Fame,
Yeah,
quarterbacks likely, but I think I think it's going to depend on the spot, but I'm hoping whatever spot they land, they do get if they stay healthy, can get the full
yeah.
season. And so that's how I'm drafting them as a third quarterback. And because I know, and I do, that'll probably be another whole show is assigning bench risk to all these, once we know all these landing spots. Because of course, once the quarterback carousel lands, I'm sure we'll do another whole quarterback show analyzing, the landing spots of this quarterback carousel. And I'm sure we'll do, a strategy show talking about like the bench risks and that kind of stuff. So definitely a lot more to talk through, but these are some of the late round guys I'm taking shots on. Go ahead. What were you saying?
The guys I do like, I am taking the rookies because I think, I'll say Warden, Shador, Sanders. I think they are going to pretty much walk into starting roles where they land, or at worst, like how Drake May was used last year, where he's in by week 5. And JJ McCarthy, I want to hear a little bit more about the injury situation.
That's what I've been waiting to hear on the injury. Go ahead.
Obviously, you love the stacking partners there between Jefferson, Addison, and Hawkinson. But I wouldn't mind, because here's the thing: even if when we get a clean bill of health, and when we get, say, Sam Darnold being on another team, and not like just franchise for a year or something like that, I don't think McCarthy's going up much. I mean, I'd probably take him above Anthony Richardson, but not drastically.
I think he'll go up some, but it's not enough that I feel like I have to take the risk now. So I'm just waiting to get that full clean bill of health. Yes, he's 100% the starter. And then even if he goes into like the 130s or late 120s, I'm fine. I'll take him there with, Justin Jefferson and that kind of stuff. So I went through all my other guys later. Mainly it was Darnold and some of those late guys, but you go through a little bit more really quick. You said the rookies and JJ.
Right now I have 0 JJ, and I'm in like between 90 drafts, either fast or slow.
But once you get the clean bill of health, if it is, then you'll take him. Yes.
Yeah. But for me, it's Darnold and Derek Carr. I think of all these other vets, Derek Carr is the most guaranteed to have a full starting role. He's, younger than the Wilsons and Cousins and stuff. And while he's had some injuries, it's not Achilles like, Rodgers and Cousins. So I think Carr is going to, whether it's back with the Saints, which would be honestly really good with Kellen Moore, or he's probably going to be the top tier guy for a team, maybe the Titans, if they're not taking a quarterback at 1 overall. Maybe the Steelers if they're looking to upgrade. So I just think he's a guy who could end up with a better landing spot. And, we've seen, some top 10, top 12 seasons in his history, more back with the Raiders. But, I just don't mind Carr at where you're getting him.
Okay. So the rookies, Darnold and Carr are the ones you're taking the most. You'll take JJ once you have a clean bill of health. So that kind of summarizes the late round guys for you.
Yeah.
Okay. A fun game to end the show of the, 15 quarterbacks we talked about in 8th through 12th rounds, you saw that I was taking the most of currently Herbert and May. When it's all said and done of that 8th through 12th round, which 2 quarterbacks, 2 or 3, do you think you'll have the most of?
I know Baker. I just love Baker, and
you owe him for your 50K 4th place big board team.
It worked last year, and like I said, it's just of all these guys we talked about, just so much certainty is still there with promoting from within, and we know the weapons and the offense line are just such a good fit, and hopefully healthier this year, the weapons. And then after that, I'm very, very intrigued on Lawrence, where you're getting him at, and May. I like the upside there.
Yeah.
But no, I honestly am going to have a good chunk of all these guys, Dak, Penix, etc. So
as you can see, I do have a good bit of May, Herbert, Dak. I want more of all of them. I definitely want more Baker, want more Purdy, want more Dak, more Penix. So I have a lot more work to do I just want to load up in this area. But no, I think that was a fun game. So Steve's 3 that he thinks he's going to be the highest on are Baker, Lawrence, and Drake May. I think my official would be, I'll go Drake May. I'll go right in the middle there, right where it's at. Drake May, Herbert, Dak. but I like yours too. And again, we just want to load up in this area. So we recommend you load up in this area too. Hopefully you found this show beneficial. Be sure to hit the like button on the way out. Remember, shows best ball shows every single weekday. Keep tuning in for live shows, strategy shows. This has been fun. We appreciate you. For Steve, I'm Meg, and we will see you next time.